Hi, my name is Sarah Barnes, and today I'm going to discuss the causes and consequences of the Enlightenment. In this video, I'm going to first explain what the Enlightenment was, give you a bit of background, then I'll explain the events that helped start the Enlightenment, some events during the Enlightenment, as well as events that occurred due to the Enlightenment. So to start, what is the Enlightenment? The Enlightenment emerged as an intellectual movement in the second half of the 18th century. It focused on questioning rational thought and the belief in progress through dialogue. The writers of the Enlightenment were called philosophes, the French word for philosophers. However, philosophes did not concern themselves with abstract theories like philosophers did. Philosophes were public intellectuals dedicated to solving real-world problems. These philosophes were enlightened thinkers who questioned ideas that had become common knowledge, like why are there absolute monarchs, and do humans have natural-born rights? The overall goal of the philosophes were to enlighten or inform the public in order to make people freer, richer, and more civilized. They examined a variety of topics including monarchy, religion, government, education, and even human nature. These philosophes considered themselves part of a grand republic of letters that transcended national political boundaries. These thinkers could be found across the globe, including Europe and the United States of America. While they were from varying cultures and backgrounds, what united them were the ideals of reason, reform, and freedom. They used reason to attack superstition, bigotry, and religious fanaticism, which they considered to be the main obstacles to free thought and social reform. Philosophes strongly believed that the spread of knowledge would encourage reform in every aspect of life, so they sought to share what they had learned in a multi-volume encyclopedia which aimed to gather knowledge together about science, religion, industry, and society. The chief editor and enlightened thinker Denis Diderot said that the goal of the encyclopedia was to teach that all things must be examined, debated, investigated without exception and without regard for anyone's feelings. These philosophes wanted freedom of the press and freedom of religion, which would allow for widespread intellectual freedom. They considered these natural rights guaranteed by natural law. Now we're going to talk about who was affected by the Enlightenment. Middle and upper class men and women who were introduced to the ideas of the Enlightenment through book trade as well as new places for urban socializing, such as coffee houses, societies for the new elite. The lower class, however, had little to no contact with enlightened ideas because their lives were shaped more profoundly by increasing population, rising food prices, and ongoing wars among the great powers. In other words, they had more important things to think about, like survival and where they'd get their next meal. Now we're going to talk about what caused the Enlightenment. Some noted causes of the Enlightenment include the Renaissance, Reformation, and the Scientific Revolution. The Reformation and rise of Protestantism disrupted the Catholic Church in Europe. Protestantism was anti-clerical, arguing for the importance of Scripture and personal faith in salvation, rather than insisting that salvation was exclusively the Church's to provide. This caused a desire for increased freedom of religion and emphasis on personal conscience. The Renaissance period showed an interest in the Roman Republic as a political model, leading to the movement for democracy and enlightenment. The Renaissance and Scientific Revolution challenged the medieval concept of scholasticism, or accepting authority without question. Renaissance thinkers were some of the first to question the concept and explore the concept of a rational universe. This idea became more popular in the Scientific Revolution when scholars argued that the entire universe could be proven by mathematical principles. The Scientific Revolution led to a new way of thinking about science, nature, and humanity, leading to the Enlightenment. Now I'm going to discuss where the Enlightenment took place and some notable events that occurred there. The Enlightenment flourished in places where an educated middle class provided an eager audience for ideas of constitutionalism and reform. Therefore, it was most prominent in a triangle formed by London, Amsterdam, and Paris, and eventually diffused outward to Eastern and Southern Europe and North America. France was the Enlightenment hotspot because the French monarchy alternated between encouraging ideas for reform and harshly censoring criticisms it found too threatening. French writers published the most daring critiques of church and state, and they often suffered harassment and persecution as a result. Voltaire, Diderot, and Rousseau all faced arrest, exile, or even imprisonment for going against the teachings of the Catholic Church. France was stuck in an interesting position because it had fewer constitutional guarantees of individual freedom compared to Great Britain, yet still enjoyed much higher levels of prosperity and cultural development than most other European countries. In short, the French elite had good reason to complain, the means to make their complaints known, as well as a government torn between desire to censor dissident ideas and the desire to appear open to progression. This forced French philosophers to take more violent, anti-clerical, and combative measures to ensure others were well informed. In Scotland, philosopher David Hume's The Natural History of Religion argued that belief in God rested on superstition and fear rather than reason. At this time, criticisms of religion were risky because every church, no matter what denomination, had a lot of influence within society, and almost every European believed in God at this point. Additionally, many people believed that religion was an essential foundation of a good society and government. Isaac Newton had his own opinion of religion. He helped people conceive that the universe was a self-perpetuating machine in which God's intervention was unnecessary. These people were classified as either atheists, people who do not believe in God at all, or deists, people who believe in God but give him no active role in earthly affairs. Additionally, in the New World, philosophers also criticized the state and church for supporting European colonization and slavery. The Enlightenment belief in natural rights helped fuel the anti-slavery movement in Britain, France, and the United States in the 1780s. Abolitionists encouraged freed slaves to share their story of enslavement. Hearing of the first-hand accounts of slavery gave the push society needed to spur the abolition of slave trade and then slavery itself. Elsewhere in Europe, Germany avoided direct political confrontations with authority. German thinker of the Enlightenment Immanuel Kant focused on the importance of reason. Kant was a university professor with a wide range of subjects he would lecture on, and he wrote one of the most important works in the history of Western philosophy, The Critique of Pure Reason, in 1781. Kant established the doctrine of idealism, the belief that true understanding can only come from examining the ways in which ideas are formed in the mind. Kant argued that ideas are shaped not by sensory information, but also by the operation on that information of mental categories such as space and time. In Kant's philosophy, these categories of understanding were neither sensory nor supernatural. They were entirely ideal and abstract and located in the human mind. Now we're going to discuss the consequences of the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment writers shifted their attention away from religious questions and toward the secular or non-religious study of society and the individual's role in it. While religion did not disappear, the philosophers tended to make religion a private affair of individual conscience, even while rulers and churches still considered religion very much a public concern. The Enlightenment interest in secular society produced two major results. It advanced the secularization of European political life that had begun after the French wars of religion of the 16th and 17th centuries, and it laid the foundation for the social sciences of the modern era. The Age of Enlightenment influenced many legal codes and governmental structures that are still in place today. For example, the idea of the three-branch system outlined in the U.S. Constitution. Montesquieu, a huge proponent of the Enlightenment, suggested the theory of separation of powers in order to obtain a political system of checks and balances, promoting order and equality. In addition to the religious and governmental movements, a new artistic movement called Romanticism occurred as a reaction to the excessive reliance on the authority of human reason. Romanticism focused on individual genius, deep emotion, and the joy of nature, which are ideals Rousseau had championed. Religious revivals and the first stirrings of Romanticism show that not all intellectual currents of the 18th century were on the same wavelength. Some cultural and social developments manifested the influence of Enlightenment ideas, while others did not. Principles of Enlightenment also feature heavily in the Bill of Rights and the Declaration of Independence. Consider, for example, Thomas Jefferson's call to action in the Declaration of Independence. He demands the rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, while denouncing the British government for not granting the colonies equal representation. In conclusion, what started as a movement of a few brilliant intellectuals in the late 1700s had reached nearly every country worldwide by the end of the century. Scientific inquiry into the causes of social distress and laws defending individual rights and freedoms gained traction among the most powerful rulers and ministers who initially tried to suppress the movement. With the culmination of every reform and revolution, it was clear to see that human reason was the powerful force behind this change that society truly needed. Thank you.